Democratic Whip.
Mr. President, I'd like to react to the statement of my friend and colleague from Wyoming. I'm against fraud. That's it. On the record, I'm against fraud. I'm a Democrat, and I don't know where he reached this different conclusion, but I want to make it very clear. Having said that, I'm also a realist. I know that the families I represent in Illinois and across the nation are facing budgets, family budgets, which are impossible to live with. They're not only struggling paycheck to paycheck, they're watching the price of groceries go up. They know the price of gasoline goes up and down, and now it's on the upward trend because of the president's war in Iran. Utility bills in my state are up 15% this year over last year because of President Trump's energy policy, which is opposed to the sustainable, renewable sources of energy, which are the most affordable. The list goes on and on. The big, beautiful bill, which the Republicans brag about, was a bill that ended up with millions of Americans losing their health insurance because the cost of premiums had gone up too high. So I think it's just great that we have tipped income exempt from taxes and that other breaks are given to working people. I would support those any day. But the bill that created those also gave the biggest tax cuts in history of the United States to the wealthiest people in the United States. Nothing, very little, for the families in comparison. That's the difference. I think we ought to be honest with the American people. The number one issue in this campaign is the affordability that families worry about every single week. There's an issue I'm going to address here more particularly, which gets to the heart of this as well. Mr. President, in 1983, I was elected to the House of Representatives. I was a freshman congressman and as nervous as any politician could be. I had defeated a Republican incumbent to come to the House, and I was just sure, looking over my shoulder, there was an issue, a press release, a vote that was going to do me in the next election. I was as nervous as can be. And in the midst of that situation, I had a visit from the leaders of the U.S. House of Representatives, and they said, Congressman Durbin, there's news for you which may decide your fate in the years to come. I said, what is it? Social Security is about to go broke. In 1983, we faced the possibility that we would not be able to make the promised Social Security payments to beneficiaries across America. I couldn't imagine a tougher challenge. One of the most popular programs in America, 1 out of 5 Americans on Social Security, and in 1983, it faced a situation where they couldn't make the payments promised. And so I proposed a commission to take a look at it, a bipartisan commission, and come up with changes in Social Security in 1983. Raised the retirement age, raised the amount of money paid by employers and employees into Social Security, and taxed income from Social Security for the first time. These changes were not easy, some were controversial, but we knew we had to do it. Our goal was to buy 50 years of solvency for Social Security with the changes in 1983. You know what? It worked. It worked to the point where we just had an announcement last week by the trustees in bankruptcy that the system will make every payment promised until the end of 2032, 50 years after the 1983 changes were made. So the promise was kept, but then the problem arises. After that, the Social Security Trust Fund will not have enough money to pay the promised benefits. What does that mean? Well, go back to my notation that 1 out of 5 Americans receive Social Security, either elderly or disabled receive Social Security. Out of those, 1 out of 5 of the recipients of Social Security have no other source of income. The average Social Security check in America is about $2,400 a month. The proposal, according to the trustees, not proposal, but the announcement, according to the trustees, is that each one of those recipients will see their monthly paycheck cut between $450 and $500. So if $2,400 is the average payment and there's a cut of $400 to $500, you can imagine the impact it will have on families. they'll be making some very difficult decisions because 1 out of 5, as I mentioned, Social Security recipients have no other source of income. They depend on Social Security. What happens when those people lose $450 to $500 a month? They have to make hard decisions on prescription drugs, on paying some utility bills and not others, on groceries, what they're able to buy, if anything. So it boils down to a very terrible situation, a terrible challenge. So the obvious question from the American people, just those receiving Social Security today, as well as those that will in the future, is what is Congress going to do about it now? In 1983, you responded with 50 years of solvency by changes in policy. What's planned in the current situation where we face another dramatic situation with Social Security? And the answer is, if you look at the agenda of the United States Senate and the U.S. House of Representatives, this year we're going to do little or nothing. Little or nothing. Why is it important that we move now instead of waiting another year, 2, 3 years before we do something? It becomes more expensive and more difficult the longer you wait to fix Social Security. The sooner you do it, the easier it is. And it won't be totally easy. There'll be some changes people will like and some they won't like. But the bottom line is the longer Congress waits to act on Social Security, the more expensive it will be, the more difficult the policy choices will be. I've reached out to several of my colleagues saying, can we finally agree as Democrats and Republicans that the #1 social policy of the U.S. government, Social Security, should be a bipartisan issue that we address? Well, it turns out that 4 Republicans joined me, as well as 3 other Democrats, and we have 8 members, Democrats and Republicans, who are supporting a bill that I call the Promise Act. What is the Promise Act? Is it the solution to the problem with Social Security? No, but it is a procedure so that we can reach that solution. Here's what it says. We are going to set up a system where the Social Security Advisory Board sends us a proposed change in Social Security. That is the starting point, just the starting point, for hearings and for national discussion about where we want Social Security to go by 2032, the end of 2032. That does not presume any solution. There are many senators who've come up with ideas on what to do with Social Security. Some surprising. A Republican senator from Ohio joined a Democratic senator from Massachusetts just 2 weeks ago, and they came up with a bipartisan proposal to save Social Security beyond 2032. The same thing has been offered by a senator from Vermont and other senators. They have ideas. Senator from Rhode Island, the junior senator, has a proposal as well. What I'm trying to do is not to pick the winners and losers, not to choose one plan over others, but to create a process on the floor where we actually, physically, verbally debate the issue. Trust me, Congress is not overworked. The House of Representatives taking off this week for 4 or 5 weeks of being back home for the August recess is fine. We do it every year. But before they leave, I think they should take up some procedure that says we're going to return to fix Social Security after the August recess. Same thing's true, should be true in the Senate. It's a bipartisan Senate in one respect, but the majority is on the Republican side. If they believe Social Security is important enough to make it a priority, let's put it on the legislative agenda when we return this year. Let's give peace of mind to the millions of Americans who currently live with Social Security benefits and those that work every week and every month paying into Social Security for their own retirement in the future. This is not easy, but it is doable. I was part of that process many years ago and want to be part of it again before I retire at the end of this year. So we have a bipartisan procedure. It does not assume any changes. It basically says we have to reach a point where we pass something that gives us another 50 years of solvency for Social Security. It's not too much to ask. I've seen it done. I voted for it 50 years ago, and I'm prepared to vote again if we have, not quite 50 years ago, it was 44 years ago. I did it, and I would do it again. It's a challenge which I think we can meet. We have the bipartisan starting point, the Promise Act. I want to see, I hope, a bipartisan vote to set up that procedure that we will return to in September or November, September, October this year so that we get something done and give peace of mind to the people who are depending on Social Security for the future. Mr. President, I yield the floor.